Well, if it's not the orange clown himself, it's his sidekick, right? And he stepped right in it again. JD Vance thought the microphones were off. $50,000 a plate in Southampton, doors closed, donors leaning in with their wine, and the Vice President of the United States has one thing on his mind. Mark Carney, who apparently tried to out-tough Donald Trump and pulled it off, and a Manitoba premier who just made that problem a lot more expensive.
So, you paid to hear how Washington was winning the trade war. Instead, you got a 10-minute review of Mark Carney's chest-puffing technique. Trump is outside shouting, "Deal!" in all caps. And inside the private room, his own number two is laughing about how much time they spend talking about Carney. If you wanted proof that Canada is living rent-free in that White House, well, Vance just served it up for dessert.
And he didn't just complain either. He explained the whole game out loud. He called Prime Minister Carney a sweet guy and then did the impression, puffs out his chest and said, he's going to out-tough Trump. Vance laughed. The donors laughed. Then you look at what actually happened this week and nobody in Washington is laughing anymore because that chest puff worked well enough that they delayed 50% tariffs within 2 hours to go and came back asking for 25. And then there's Kinew. He looked at the same deal and said, nice try, buddy. No CUSMA, no Boozma. We can pull it right back off the shelf. Now, that's not chest puffing. That's leverage that you can put in your pocket.
So let's start with Vance. This was a private fundraiser in Southampton, New York. Nobody was supposed to hear about this, but CBC, at CTV, and the Canadian press, they got the scoop from the recording. He was talking to people who pay to hear how the team really feels. And what he says about Canada is very different from the victory lap that you see on television.
Yeah, in public, it's all, oh, we have a deal, everyone's happy, Canada folded. In that room, though, Vance is talking about Prime Minister Carney's posture nonstop. He's talking about who is working the back channels, and he's grading Canadian politicians like he's hosting some reality show. That certainly is not the talk of a team that thinks this is over. That is the talk of a team that knows the other side has made them work for every inch.
And Vance's line was just so cute. He said, Mark Carney puffs his chest out and acts like he can out-tough Trump, and then Canada climbed down on a lot of issues. Sure, Canada is discussing concessions, and Prime Minister Carney asked the premiers to put American alcohol back on the shelves. But they are conversations on procurement and irritants that Washington has yelled about for years. So, look at Washington's own climb down while Vance was doing his own little stupid comedy set.
You got steel and aluminum, they were at 50%. The number now being negotiated is 25%. Autos were facing a headline 25%. The number under discussion now is 15%. And potentially only on non-US content in the vehicle. The original threat was 50% on a whole new basket of goods on top of what steel, aluminum, lumber, and autos were already carrying. Trump tacoed on that deadline. The rate is being haggled down, and the vice president is spending his private time explaining Prime Minister Carney's style to rich donors. If that's winning, well, Washington has a strange definition of it.
Now here's the part that blew up, and Canadians, you need to pay attention, because it's crazy. On that same tape, Vance goes out of his way to praise Jamil Jivani as an effective advocate behind the scenes. And then, in the same breath, he calls Pierre Poilievre a non-entity in these talks. So, we have talked a lot about Jivani before on this channel, and if you've watched any of those videos, you know he is a bootlicking sycophant of Trump and Vance. Jivani and Vance, they have known each other for years, and they run in the same circles. And now the American vice president is picking his favorite Canadian conservative out loud. This guy is dangerous, and we have said it before. He is importing that right-wing conservative media talking points. He's going around to all of the universities and doing the Take Back the North tour. He's importing all of Charlie Kirk's talking points, and he's trying to split up Canada.
So we need to be on the lookout for that guy. And also, this wasn't some accident either. It didn't happen that way. This was Vance telling donors who actually gets them. If Vance says Jivani is effective, he's telling you Jivani could reach people close to Trump when formal channels are jammed. One conservative MP gets a gold star from the White House, and the leader of the party gets told he's insignificant. PP has to be fuming about that one. Politically, this is an absolute mess for the Conservatives. Their friend gets praised in Southampton, while their leader gets dismissed as background noise.
This also shows how this White House actually works, right? Titles matter, but access matters more. If someone can get to the people near the president, they get a side door that runs right beside the official negotiation. Back channels, they can be useful, but they can also be dangerous if the message off to the side does not match what Ottawa is holding in the main room.
Now, enter Kinew, Manitoba Premier. He did not come to this to be diplomatic. He came to do an impression, land a punch, and tell every other premier what to do with American booze. Prime Minister Carney asked the premiers to consider putting American alcohol back on provincial shelves. Kinew said he got the push, he understood it, he even said Carney pushed hard, almost begging. But he was not announcing a return to the shelves today. And then he turned to the cameras and gave Canadians the line that you will quote all week.
No CUSMA, no Boozma. 4 words and funny as hell, but he is dead serious. He said, okay, hypothetically, if we do put it back, his message to Canadians is leave it there. Don't buy it. We reserve the right to pull it right back off the shelves because that guy is very erratic and he's gone back on his own word countless times. Ottawa can negotiate whether the formal ban stays in or goes, but no government in Canada can force shoppers to buy it. That is the leverage that Washington never figured out. Canadians are mad.
Yeah. And Kinew, he didn't stop at the shelves either. He did a hilarious Trump impersonation, and then he dropped the diagnosis straight. I think we should fight, he said. I think Donald Trump is very weak. I think America is weaker around the world today than it was a year ago. He's about to get slaughtered in the midterms, and the cost of living is the #1 issue, and he's completely out of touch with the cost of living of Americans. We've got the upper hand. They're back on their heels right now, and they're coming to us for a deal right now. Those are his words.
I love Kinew, and I think every Canadian loves Kinew. But listen, you don't make liquor shelves a condition for a national trade deal unless empty shelves are hurting farm states that call their senators every day. Kinew read that weakness out loud and said what a lot of premiers are thinking but won't say to camera. And we love him for it. Keep going, Kinew. We love you.
And then he continued and went even further. And it's important to highlight what Kinew says here because it explains why Canadians don't trust any deal Trump makes. He said, everybody knows the American president by now. He's erratic, he's irresponsible, and he's not to be trusted. And this is the person that we're supposed to make a deal with, and we're going to make additional concessions for it? That's why I say you can't make a good deal with a bad person, because who's to say it's not going to be undone? Perfectly stated, if you ask me.
Quote of the year, you can't make a good deal with a bad person.
I love it.
So this is the booze ban in a nutshell. Prime Minister Carney can want a deal, Trump can demand the booze goes back on the shelves, but Prime Minister Carney has to persuade premiers who have to look their voters in the eye. Trump learned that he cannot get Canada with one signature in the Oval Office. It has to go through Winnipeg and Toronto and Quebec City. And right now, Winnipeg is staying strong.
So let's line this all up the way Vance lined it up without meaning to. Trump wanted the headline on Wednesday morning. Prime Minister Carney refused to give him a signed page and said there's more work to do. LeBlanc went into a meeting that was supposed to be 30 minutes and came out almost 3 hours later saying that they were very close. And the next night, Vance is in a private room explaining to donors why Prime Minister Carney's approach got under their skin. That, to me, is not a White House that has wrapped this up. It's a White House that is still negotiating line by line the day before the deadline.
And hey, plenty is still on the line. The bigger CUSMA review is coming. Lumber is still carrying a combined duty at around 35% for many producers. Autos, they're vulnerable at 15%. Steel, it's still vulnerable even at 25%. And supply management looks intact, but dairy access is still being talked about a lot.
So when someone on television tells you Canada got everything, just turn the volume down. Canada, yes, we refused the original terms and forced a negotiation. And we are giving ground too, especially on alcohol and maybe even procurement. Anyone who tells you that this is all win or all surrender is selling you something you don't need to listen to.
So at this private event, Vance exposed more than he meant to. He showed you that Prime Minister Carney's strategy of staying calm while Trump shouts around the world, that it worked well enough that the White House has had to learn it by name and explain it to donors. And he showed you why Wab Kinew's line lands so hard. Governments can put American bottles back on the shelf tomorrow, sure, but Canadians, they still decide what they buy, where they travel, and which companies get their money. That power, it doesn't disappear when a document gets signed.
So keep that in your back pocket when the announcement comes at 12:01 today.
Now, here is our question for you today. It's very simple. Will you buy American booze and wine when it goes back on the shelf?
Or are you sticking with your Canadian choices? Let us know in the comment down below, and while you're down there, check out the pinned comment for our merch store, our Substack, and our private Facebook group.
And make sure to give this a hype, a like, and a share. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We love bashing on Trump, so come join us every single day.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.